right, thank you, Amy. So if you can't tell by now, we could talk about this stuff all day. I'm going to try doing it in 14 minutes. I want to thank the previous panel, especially Mayor Vagianos, Senator Greenstein, Assemblywoman Swain, on their work to make sure something like this never happens again, because we can't afford another PFAS. We can't afford another chemical that causes this type of problem. So why is it a PFAS conundrum? You know, PFAS, as we all know, a forever chemical. It's in a lot of stuff. I picked the word conundrum because it's created the most intricate, difficult problem that I've had to ever solve in my career. And also because conundrum is the name of my favorite red wine. When you have to convince a village council to spend $150 million and educate 60,000 residents one by one on why PFAS is in the water and what are you doing to get rid of it, the only thing you could do is drink wine. But it takes a lot of work. So how many people in here feel like this guy? Raise your hand. You're in a sea of foam. PFAS is being regulated more and more every day. What do? I want you to know you're not alone. Science and regulation is still evolving, but the foam is going away. You might feel alone, but help is on the way. So just hold that thought as we make our way through this presentation. So what does treatment look like today? Huge steel vessels, land grabbed throughout the entire state just to build this treatment. Facades to fit into neighborhoods. Literally had to build a plant that looks like $1 million home because the only available space was right in that neighborhood. We need to explore new technologies to help this problem. Bridgewater had to spend $150 million to treat 52 wells. 31 treatment plants had to turn into 12 treatment plants by building miles of water main to connect those old plants to the new ones. That equates to about $2,500 per resident in our service area for something they didn't create, something the utility didn't create, but now we all have to pay to clean up. Some staggering stats that kind of follow that, and the numbers are growing every day. It's not just those big plants, but it's the carbon and everything else that has to go into them. We're not talking about millions of dollars anymore. We're talking about billions of dollars. For Ridgewood Water alone, we had to construct 40 treatment vessels and have 880,000 pounds of carbon. Now that's natural material that has to be mined out of the ground in the nation, has to be trucked to Ridgewood, and it only lasts a year. It then has to be regenerated and brought back. So the footprint involved with all this is not just getting it out of the water, it's everything else that's involved with it. I asked Calgon Carbon, one of the major manufacturers of carbon, what are their projections for this industry, just here in New Jersey? They're projecting just in 2026, 6 million pounds of carbon. They're saying that in the next year, that could go up 3x or 4x. And that doesn't even include some of the biggest utilities here in New Jersey that alone are going to have millions of pounds of this carbon just to rid PFAS from their drinking water. So solving that puzzle, and going back to what I said earlier, help is on the way. You're not alone. You're here today. You're at one of the most prominent technological institutes in New Jersey, and I'm not saying that because I graduated from here, but it truly is the place to come to solve a problem. So under the leadership of Dr. Tom Dewan and NJIT and people like Nick and the Board of Trustees, New Jersey Institute of Technology started laying the groundwork for Partnership Innovation Consortium for PFAS. This will serve as a bridge between regulations and the solutions that are needed to meet them. By connecting academic innovation, like people from NJIT, Princeton, Rutgers, Stevens, Rowan, and now Montclair, with engineers like myself, utility operators, other New Jersey collaboratives like Jersey Waterworks, and regulators like DEP. The consortium will accelerate the commercialization of technologies that detect, remediate, destroy, and replace these thousands of PFAS chemicals. And that's so important to everything we all do every day. How are we going to do that? The mission of the consortium is to establish a collaborative, an ecosystem that develops, validates, and scales technologies for detection, remediation, and material substitution to something that's safer, economic, and healthier for the people in New Jersey and the nation. Our vision is a state of New Jersey that's nationally and globally recognized for that work, to be leaders, to innovate, to manage, and serve a model for advocacy, not just for New Jersey, but for the world, through integrated research, technology translation, community validation, and then responsible commercialization of those products while protecting the environment and be sustainable about the growth of everything that we need to do to solve that problem. And to just give you a specific example to that, Ridgewood Water, knowing that we made this $150 million investment and knowing that every single citizen had to invest $2,500 of their money to make that happen when it was something they didn't cause, we wanted to protect it. So I came to this event a year ago and a bell went off in my head. Now that I spent that money, NJIT helped me find a way to protect that. This collaborative is finding ways to not only treat the water better, but protect that investment, extend the life of carbon so it doesn't have to be changed out every year. Detect the chemical in a day's time instead of having to wait 2 weeks to find out the result. So again, like I said, help is on the way. You could start by being here today and asking questions and finding out how you could join and be part of that solution. And it's not always about that bottle of wine. It's about how many you have and how you could help find a solution. Thank you.
I don't know if anybody submitted questions electronically, but I'll go ahead and ask a couple the old-fashioned way. Amy, why are, and I've been personally frustrated with this, PFAS is in all kinds of consumer products. Why isn't it that we don't have comprehensive bans on PFAS in consumer products?
Well, it's about two things, money and profits. And it's about finding a substance that might have had an initial purpose and then figuring out, oh, well, we could use it for this, that, and the other thing. And to be honest, 3M and DuPont knew almost at the beginning the harm that they were doing, and they just did it anyway because they had something that they could market and could be used in a lot of different ways. It's a magical thing, and it's a very dangerous thing. And just like the tobacco and opioid industry, I think the PFAS industry may feel the same reckoning one day about their own liability. And certainly the state of New Jersey has gone after them quite a bit. So I think it's really taking something that was used for some narrower purpose and then just trying to figure out a way to market it and make money without consequence.
Thanks. Rich. So each citizen or each household is spending $2,500. That certainly gets people's attention. But further, it's a public health hazard. So what challenges did you face communicating not just the public health hazard, but the cost? Because I'm sure they're significant.
So for Ridgewood, it was very difficult because we were so very early on into this problem. People didn't know what PFAS was. So we started communicating by sending out public notices, We held public forums. But even with that, trying to get people to recognize what the problem was and what we needed to do was difficult. We figured on average it took about 7 contact points for people to really start to understand the issue. Of course, today it's much different because you could read about PFAS in the news every day. But once we did that, people understood the issue. But I found that you almost had to do it individually because it's such a complex story to tell. Trying to make people understand what PFAS is, how it got in their water, and why it's now their problem, and why as a ratepayer they have to help pay for it. But I just want to add on to that. A lot was said in the prior panel, and it's important because New Jersey does a great way to kind of assist you down that road. And Andy mentioned the infrastructure bank. Without the New Jersey Infrastructure Bank, utilities like Ridgewood wouldn't be able to accomplish this task. The Infrastructure Bank takes every federal dollar they get and they turn it into $2, $3, or $4. So we're able to leverage that principal forgiveness from the federal government, for the laws that were passed. And we've turned over every other stone as possible to try to get funding to limit the exposure on the customer.
So I just want to add another point in that, in some cases, consumer products, like I was talking about my London fog coat, I mean, it was intentionally added to provide that waterproofing, right? But there are many, many products that have unintentional contamination of PFAS. There's no labeling requirement for the intentional added items, except in some instances. And there's certainly not for the unintentional. So I think one of the things that would be important to this group of, innovators and explorers is how do we address the unintended contamination, because the processes are using PFAS for lubricants and cooling and other things that end up in products as well. So, and the laws are not geared towards proper labeling and accounting, and we don't have enough regulation. So sometimes you'll have something that says, well, this battery is is lead-free, or this, this solder is lead-free, but actually it has lead in it. It's just because it has so little in it or a certain percentage. So sometimes even our regulations don't get you to zero. They get you to a low amount, but you still have exposure. So it's important to recognize that and to try and figure out how to innovate in processes, not just product.
We got some electronic questions?
Yes, we have a handful. We're never going to get to them in the time that we have here, but I'd like to start with one here. So recent NJDEP settlement is the largest in the state at $2.5 billion. Do we think that's enough?
It's never enough. I hope that was your answer too. It's a good start. What we need to know from the state is how they're going to leverage those dollars to help utilities solve this problem. Because at the end of the day, the customer's burdened with it. They're already burdened with other rising costs. So we need to find out the way to leverage that money so that it turns into other dollars that could be used to invest in the treatment.
And I would just say that 3M has decided to phase out production of PFAS and ended that in 2025, which means they might have feedstock somewhere sitting around that could be around for a while. But Chemours has increased their production of F-gas for data centers. So we have somebody who's phasing out and has huge responsibility, and we have other companies, that are phasing in, and Solvay was not like running to the table to do the right thing. And they're a company that's based here in New Jersey.
Yeah, and I would add, my friends have derived a number, which is a guess of $400 billion nationwide. Well, if New Jersey's 3 or 4% of the country, that puts us at $10 to $20 billion, and we're more industrialized than average anyway. So, yes, the number is inadequate.
Can we sneak in one last question here? So And this is more ideas. How do we translate R&D that we are learning at industry and at the universities out to the communities? And is there a major challenge in asking consumers for cleanup funds?
I'll take the communication part of that. I think what NJIT is doing here with this collaborative, it's right on track to answer that question, because for so long you had the separation between all the groups that are here to solve problems, but now we're unified because it's the only way we're going to solve this problem. So to take people in the academic world that are so focused on the research and development, put them in the room, people like Amy and myself who know how to talk the talk about what we do every day, will provide the consumer the education they need to then support this work and get the funding that's going to be needed, because there's some amazing stuff that's happening. It just, you need to get the support and the communication out there so we continue it and accelerate it, because we needed it 7 years ago, but here we are today, and it's not too late.
Yeah, the consortium that we've put together is specifically designed to get new technologies into the hands of people like Langen Engineering or Ridgewood Water or other folks quicker than they've ever gotten in before. We've learned a lot of lessons. I personally learned a lot of lessons about technology commercialization in the environmental space. We need a moonshot to get these technologies out, and we have the ability to do that now.
I would just say that, again, technology is not going to save us entirely. We need technology to deal with what we've inherited, but the public should not be expected to pay the bill, preferably at all, but they shouldn't be expected to pay the bill if we're never going to turn off the tap for PFAS. So you have to do both at the same time, because utilities and ratepayers, taxpayers, should not, always have this burden, and it's amazing the great work that's being done in this room and outside of this room. But, the public has a right to know that there'll be an end to it, or at least some way to hone in those dollars for legacy, not for future contamination.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Let's thank the panel.